Excellent. So, let me see. So listen, before we start, I've just got to let you know of a few OH&S issues.
Really?
No.
Sorry.
No,
Yes, I won't laugh again.
No, it's mildly humorous. Don't worry. I'm happy to leave that on the tape. So just so that you know, we've got an exit just over here. If there are any emergencies, we'll go down the stairs and we'll head out the front door, which is the one that you came into. If you need, you can adjust your chair to suit your height. This is also a stand-up desk, so if you require it, we can raise the desk up. It's actually a really good bit of kit. So if you're at your desk,
A guy's got it at
really
work.
awesome.
Actually, he reckons it's awesome.
They're
like,
fantastic. They
No.
saved my life. They absolutely saved my life. Other things are if you have any access or equity issues that you need to let me know of, or any language literacy or numeracy issues that you need to let me know of, please let me know so that I can adjust the training to suit your needs.
None whatsoever, mate.
Awesome.
I'm ready.
All right, so you'll notice on the side there, I've got you a little bit of a learning package there. It just basically covers your current work practices and your gaps in knowledge, as we've sort of discussed through our own conversations. Yeah, I won't go over that now because we've pretty much covered that in emails and phone conversations, and we've made an agreement on the basis of that. In terms of learning objectives, what we're going to do today is just try and set up some complex submission options in Turnitin. I know that you're capable of setting up the basic options, but we're going to have a bit of a play with it and try and tweak those a bit so that you can get more out of it. Going to do some basic navigation of GradeMark, some creating and editing of marking rubrics, some creating and editing of quick mark comments, entering general comments, using an iPad to mark assessments, and importing marks to UOW's SMP or student management package. Are you happy with that?
Yeah, no worries.
Excellent. All right. So before I forget, I'll just grab my iPad. Alrighty. So I'll just keep it pretty casual as well, and we'll just kind of, and at any stage, if you feel like you want to cover some stuff, you've got paper here for notes if you want.
Yep.
Obviously, you can write on your learning package as well, your lesson plan.
Yep.
But I've also included in there the instructions on how to import marks into SMP and a basic starter kit for Turnitin. And I've previously emailed you the very big GradeMark and Turnitin manual, which is a bit too big for me to print. Has about 400 pages. So.
We'll leave that.
To be honest, we can pretty much get everything going through here. So if you want to take charge of the computer,
Excellent.
we'll see how we're going. There we are. And if you open up your Firefox down the bottom and log into your Moodle site. You might log into me actually.
Nah, it's
Oh.
cool. It'll just do this for me.
Too easy.
Alright.
Alright, so if we might go into the ER site just for now. We're going to jump between the educational research and the cultural studies one, only because you've already got some stuff set up in there that we can work with. Because we've just set up a Turnitin for the ER paper,
Yep.
yeah.
Yep.
What I'm going to get you to do is to go to the Turnitin link for the most recent educational research submission.
Yep.
Okay, so if you click on that, and if you click on options, okay, basically that shows you a few standard things that you've got there in terms of, you know, how long the comments are available and the maximum comment length, etc. Go back to the summary. These are things that you should be pretty familiar with at the moment, and go to the notepad with the pen on the end there. That's how you edit some options. Okay, and you can actually change, you can create a new name for it. You can change the start date and time, which is when it's available for students to click on and submit papers. You can change the due date, as I'm sure you're aware, and the post date is when you can change the postmate date so that it only releases back to students once all the papers are marked. Yeah, so you can set that well before. If we have a 3-week turnaround for each assessment, generally what we'll do is we'll set that 3-week a little bit longer than that 3-week time, just in case some of your casual markers, for example, are running a bit late and you have to do a bit of catch up.
Absolutely.
Now notice you've set it up the maximum marks as 100, and that's a really good option to use. But another good option to use is to set it for the actual marks that are set aside for that assessment. So I think this one is 35, is it? 35%?
Yep.
Yeah, so you can set it to 35%. Since we're not actually marking on Turnitin for this assessment, this is just an opportunity for us to play around with it and explore some of those options, and you can submit that. Excellent. And then it synchronises it through. Excellent. Alright, so if you go back to your ER Moodle page, and if you go up into the top right corner and turn editing's on, isn't it? Okay, cool. That's cool. That's cool. That's perfect. Okay, and scroll down to your Turnitin link. Where are we? And go to edit. Edit settings. Now a lot of these settings, I know that you already know how to set up a Turnitin link. A lot of these settings can be tweaked when you set it up as well, but if you just basically set it up for the sake of getting a link up and running when you're creating the web page and you want to go in and tweak it later, you do have to tweak it through this platform by turning editing on into the main Moodle page. But here's a couple of options that you might want to play with. Okay, so you can tweak it so that you have a number of parts. At the moment, it's set to set to 1. You can create student originality reports. Often these are just part of the standard settings. You could allow late submissions. Now this is a good one to check. A lot of people don't actually check it, and what happens is if a student is 5 minutes late, you just get inundated with emails. So if you check it with allow late submissions, then the students will be able to keep submitting, but you will have a time log of when they submit, which is flagged in red in the submission inbox, and you'll be able to tell pretty easily if they're late or on time. Everything else is pretty straightforward. Generate reports immediately in report generation speed. Generate reports immediately. Reports can be overwritten until due date. Now what that means is that the students can actually use Turnitin as a tool to help them with any plagiarism or paraphrasing issues they may have. So what it does is it generates a report. It shows them the red flags that we would see, and it gives them an opportunity to tweak it. Yep. Yeah, this is often used for first year students. You don't, by third year they really shouldn't be doing that.
They are, trust me.
I know.
I'm watching it in progress, but anyway.
The other option for some assignments, if you don't want to give them that option, is if you click on the drop down for report generation speed, you can have the top one, which is generate reports, first report is final, or generate reports on the due date only. Yeah, but as I say, like if you're using it as a tool to help them get away from that sham paraphrasing and that over reliance on quotes, which they really need to do, and if they use that in conjunction with some good drafting, where they actually read it through and go, okay, I'm not just changing a word or two here, then it can be a really good tool for them. Standard repository, check against stored student papers, yes. If that does happen and it is a stored paper from a previous year, you will have to get permission from the convener of that course, but it just sends an automatic email out to them and they just authorise it. It's pretty straightforward. Check against internet, yes. Check against journals, yes, always. Exclude bibliography. I tend to keep the bibliography in. Only because it helps me check if they've written the bibliography correct. Because if you go to the bibliography and the whole reference is not coloured in, then they've done something to it. They haven't copied it in properly, and it's just these are all the visual kind of tools you use to speed up the process.
One of the problems though, and I think it's still a problem from memory, is that it looks for it to be titled bibliography, and if they title it reference list, which is the Australian term that's used more widely to the best of my knowledge anyway, it has a little bit of trouble. And we'll talk about a few ways of getting around that. To be honest, you don't just pay attention to the originality report number alone. Like I've had HD papers that have got like a really high originality report,
and what it is that they've just got block quotes, but they're really well infused, and they're done in a very sophisticated way. So the originality report alone isn't enough, and often those colours that they have next to them are a good indicator, because you might have a 47% similarity report, but it'll have a yellow, and that's not a red flag so much. Sometimes what you do get is students accidentally submitting the same paper to 2 different courses, and you get like an 87 to 100%.
Oh yeah, we've had a couple of those.
Yeah, and you just got to be careful with them. Grade, if you click on grade, okay, whoop. So you can tweak the maximum points and create specific categories, etc. Again, those are pretty standard. You don't have to worry too much about those if you start using a rubric and you play around with the quick marks that we'll talk about today. Groups and visibility. This is actually a really handy one if you have sort of different sorts of assignments. So for example, I had a course of 500 students, and I had 5 markers, and I wanted some way of being able to split the papers up between the 5 markers. And there are a couple of ways you can do it. One is you can set up 5 different Turnitin inboxes, which basically allows you to, you have to, in your assessment instructions, you have to be very clear to the students. If you have assessment 1, please click the link on assessment 1 for Turnitin. And that's really quick and easy. If you've got 5 different questions, for example, 5 different questions, and that's a really easy way of doing it. The other way of doing it is if you're getting your tutors to mark it. And at the very beginning of the semester, what you can do is you can create groups through your participant list, which is again really straightforward. Especially, I think there is an integration between SMP and Moodle, which can do that very easily. So you basically create groups, and then when they're submitting their papers, they've got an option to click on group, and they'll click Dr. Badami or Dr. Clear for. And then that just separates them off, and you can just go, all right, Monty, here are your papers, Ken, here are your papers, and it just makes it easier than having to cross-reference your role. Again, it's just about speeding it up. So I remember telling you that the big thing is about if you put a bit of time in the setup, the execution is like...
No, that's a good one, because if we were going to mark this, then yes, it would be 6... How many people we got? 7 people. 6 people. 7 people would need to... so you don't want to waste people's time.
Absolutely.
Flittering through an inbox trying to work out where's my 100 students or where's my...
Yeah, it's really timely. It kind of takes a lot of time. Alrighty, availability date, post date, that's all good. Okay, so if we come out of there and go... just cancel it, because we don't have to tweak any of these things in this space. If you click on the link, so not on the edit, but click on the link to the 2A submission, and go into the submission inbox. So what we have here is obviously this is all the submissions that have come in. Now you can choose to show a certain number of submissions if you look in that top right corner. I tend to show them all. I don't know why, it just makes it easier to scroll through. So if you click on that and show all, and obviously it all comes through, and there are a number of ways that you can sort this information so that you can find different papers. Obviously in the top left corner you've got the search box. You can search by name. If you click on the student submission at the top, it just sorts by student names, which is a good way as well. You can mix them up. Paper ID is not really a handy way of sorting it, because it's just an ID that Turnitin gives it to. So you can also sort by submitted to flag those late ones. And everyone seems to be on time. Click it again.
Except for all the people that haven't entered.
Yeah, there is that, of course. You can click on similarity.
Oh, sorry, I didn't click on submitted again.
No, they're all on time. I actually think, though, when I first had a look at this the other day, the option was do not allow late submissions.
It was. I've been in and changed it. Because we have people who've got extensions and they want to use it as a learning tool, and so they want me to open it back up so they can submit again. One catch that we did just find though was that when it's open like that, it doesn't appear to let them keep going. So it allows them to submit, but it doesn't allow them. Let's say they actually have until this Friday to submit, and I've said yes, allow late submissions. They submit a first copy, and then they want to work out where they're going to get pinned. So they want to go to submit a second copy, and it appears it's not going
Now,
to.
do you know why that is?
Hopefully it's setting. We good?
It is. Yeah, we are. So the reason for that is because even though you're allowing late submissions, your post date is your due date is set before their extension.
Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
But
So
I don't want to go and move the due. I mean, I guess I could at this point. It wouldn't matter.
You can. It wouldn't matter because what? But I mean, it's a tough one because what you're dealing with is late submissions.
Yes.
Yeah. So it depends on how big the course is and how able you are to monitor it personally. But if in a situation like this where you've got a handful that you can actually see their names, you can go, all right, well, I'll just change that post date. You know everybody else is that due date. You know everybody else has come in on time. Change the due date, which you now know how to do, and then that allows them change it to that submission time, and that then allows them the opportunity to overwrite their submission and use that originality report to improve their work. Yeah. Sure. Where am I? Okay. You can. Okay. If you click on similarity, you can organise them according to their originality report. So you generally go the other way, and see the ones that have the big flag. And even though that's a yellow and a 40% similarity, that doesn't necessarily mean that it's a dodgy one. And so if you click onto that paper, it'll bring up a new window. And if you click on originality, you'll be able to see where those flags are. And you know.
A host of 1%ers.
Oh, we're getting a bit cut and pasty there, right? So that gives you an opportunity to go, alright, might have to have a bit of a chat. And you make that call, it's getting quite cut and pasty. So a lot of paraphrasing, and what is problematic here is that they're dealing with one article but looking at other things that are analysing it. So there's a bit of a cut and paste issue there that you might want to talk to them about. Which is beyond the sham. It's kind of at the very least sham paraphrasing. It is to me that's pretty close to that plagiarism line. But you have to look at the and what's interesting is the quotes aren't coming up, which is problematic. Because if anything should come up, it's the quotes, right? But what you have to be careful of is your university policy on plagiarism, because often, you know what it's like now. You know, you've got students that have got so much invested in that record. We've had a few cases at Macquarie where it's a clear case of plagiarism, and they've been accused of it, and then they've started up a case against the university saying, you know, we've tarnished their good name. It's like, well, we didn't really do that, mate. That was you. So often the learning and teaching department will have a clear line that says this is the point at which you can make that claim against a student, and so you have to be very careful and watch what your words are. We have an officer to investigate. Yeah. Oh, great. So you can palm it off now.
Who you would think, but not quite. But yeah, that's the process. Anyway.
Excellent. If you click if you close that screen for me. Alright, so that's just so that you get an idea of that. You can organise them according to grades if you want to kind of just get a sense of the grades that you've given them. What that will do is it will give you a mark out of 35 if that's the one that you've attributed, and it will also give you a percentage, so that you can kind of get a rough idea of what's going on. To download a paper, you click on that white piece of paper. You can download the submission. You don't have to do it now, but for example, there may be a reason why you want to download the submission and keep it aside. And you can also delete submissions and resubmit. So for a classic example, I've accidentally submitted a paper for a different subject. Can you get rid of the submission and fix it up?
I've already done that once.
Yeah, of course.
100% match.
All right, that's us at the moment. All right, okay, so we're going to now go into grade mark. What I might do, I'm just going to... Actually, no, we'll stick on this one. What I want you to do is just click on any of the papers. Okay. Alrighty, so now this is your grade mark screen. Okay, this is a pretty good size of screen for it to open up with.
Absolutely.
So one thing you have to be aware of is that the size of the submission inbox screen will determine the size of the pop-up screen that gives you your grade mark that you can mark on. So if you have a really small submission inbox screen, you're going to end up having to keep opening and making that screen bigger. So I tend to find the optimum screen size for my grade mark and then make my submission inbox screen the same size as that.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a time thing.
Yeah, sure.
Okay, so if you look at the bottom left-hand corner, there's a zoom function. My dodgy old 40-year-old eyes, I often have that set at maximum. That's up to you, depending on what kind of a computer you're working on and what works best for you. You can also, if you put your mouse onto that scroll button, you can actually change the size of it. I think you can, if you can hover, I think that may be set at the maximum, but you can make that larger or smaller. I might just have a quick tweak and see. You can
Hide the pane or open the pane.
no, I think that. You can certainly make that bigger or smaller, which is handy for your quick marks.
Yeah.
In a different operating screen, what I had was an opportunity to make that bigger or smaller. But you know that really is up to yours. So you set that up at the beginning and then adjust the screen so it's at the one that you like. If you go up into the top right corner, click on originality as we've just done. That just gives you those basic originality, similarity.
This is Ryan again.
Yeah, cool. Now this is one you can use. You can even. There's a problem with this is that you have to you can't put quick marks on there whilst it's in the originality report. That's unfortunate. You can on the iPad, interestingly enough.
Really?
Yeah, because it just gives you the highlights and you just got the drag and drops on the side.
You can see why you mark on iPad.
Yeah. So I just, highlight and just put that quick mark which says, quotism or cut and paste.
Yeah, right.
Which I prefab.
There you go iOS.
Oh, it's great. So this is your originality report. Obviously down the right hand side you've got all the percentages of where they come from. All those 1%ers, they're not awful, but it does kind of demonstrate that this is a strategy that this student employs is very cut and pasty. It's more than sham paraphrasing. It's actual cut and paste without any referencing at all.
Yeah.
So that's your call.
Yeah, that's all right.
Is that my stand?
Ryan Beatty. That's mine. So I'll deal with Ryan.
Enjoy that.
Thank you. I saw it straight away. I went, physical activity, that's mine.
If you look at the match overview, there's two little ones that you can click on. Okay. So it kind of gives you an overview of what those sources are and kind of actually shows you where it's been cut and pasted from. So you don't want to be spending a lot of time doing this. This is kind of something you would do with the student. Because you just basically want to flag it, put it aside and go, alright, send the email, get the student in and go, dude, look at what's going on. I didn't do it. Alright, well, explain this. And this, and this, and this.
Yes, there's rather a lot.
Alright, if you go into peer mark, up to the top left.
I've literally never clicked on peer mark. I think it is doing it. It's just doing it very slowly, I think. It's trying to
I don't know what's happening today. Maybe it's all this dodgy weather.
I was going to say it rained, mate. As soon as it rained, that's the end. NBN or no NBN.
Bit of dramas. Let's go into grade mark first and then go to peer mark. Yeah, it's not going through. Listen, peer mark is a tool that students can use. I actually use it quite a bit because I implement a range of peer review processes with students to help them with their writing. Really good thing about peer review is students don't realise what bad writing is until they read somebody else's work that is the same as theirs. And it's a really good tool. But you got to determine whether or not it's worthwhile for your course. All right, in the grade mark, pretty straightforward here. If you hover down, see where that transfer data is. That's a bit dodgy. If you go to the left on I. That gives you all the information you need about the paper, so it gives you word counts, etc. when it was submitted, those originality reports.
I've not done that one before.
Yeah,
It's a new one. Thank you.
It's a good
I
one
like
for
it.
word counts.
Good work.
You got to remember it also counts
Include
the
a reference list.
yeah, but that's cool. Like that
Yeah,
gives
yeah.
you a pretty good idea.
Yep.
Yeah.
That would mean he's pretty close. He's 1800.
Yeah.
That's probably about right.
You can tell when they're taking the mic.
Yep.
Yeah. Anyway, and it just gives you a chance to. You can see it, and you can just give it a quick hover and go, all right, yeah, and then you write that in your comments. Dude, it was like this many words.
Yeah.
And your bibliography's not that big, so what's going on? Next to that, you have a little what is supposed to be an iPad.
Ah.
Okay.
Gotcha.
What this is for is to generate a class access code, so that you can mark on the iPad. I'll get you to do it now whilst we're in it. So if you generate that access code,
Absolutely.
but we won't actually go into the iPad app until a bit later, because we'll get you through all this and then we'll. So you can actually get a Turnitin app.
Nice.
You can also get EndNote and Mendeley on your iPad, which is great. Okay, so. Alright, so very quickly, I've got this set up for my one for FE,
Yep.
but if you click on the little person, okay, it'll ask you to username, etc. You can kind of set it up with the username and password that is, I'll tweet that is given to you from the university. You can set up an independent username and password to then link that to the university. The easiest way is to use your university stuff, because then all of your subjects will be automatically loaded up. But because you're using mine, if you go into add a class with access code, okay, you'll see the access code here. You just have to type that in with the spaces and make it case sensitive. So
Case sensitive, dude.
yeah, little
Really?
bugger. You know, if you press this twice.
Yeah, good work. Thanks. I'm not an iPad user. iOS, sure. Fine, sure.
Alright. If you click on University of Wollongong, you'll see that EDER is up there. Now what's going to happen is that this is going to take a little while to load up. One thing that might be an issue is that,
We didn't log in.
well, might be because we've got two different logins. So
Yeah,
I've got your. Oh no, it's starting to sync. You'll see that it's starting to sync. So by the time we're ready to use this, hopefully we'll have the EDER turn it into play with. Yeah.
Yep.
Now if you go down next to that, you've got a little printer. Obviously, you can print off the paper, but what you can also do is print off the originality report in colour. You hand to the student. Not optimal because it's a waste of paper. It's better to bring them in and show them. Okay. Where am I? What am I up to? View options, display options, utility options, paper info, marking options. Okay. So if we go over to the bottom right of the screen, you'll notice there are a few different marking options. To the left of those options is the quick mark set. Sorry, I've set up my.
No, that's fine.
I might just move this up a little bit so that you don't have to keep getting my zoomy toolbar. This is your quick mark set. If you move over to the right of that, you have a comment box, and here you can add voice comments or text comments. You move over to the right of that, you have the comments list, which basically once you've put all your comments in, it just gives you a list of them. Yeah, so that you can refer back to them pretty quickly. And if you move over to the right of that, you have the rubrics. Okay. We won't do it now, but if you finished marking a paper and you close the paper, just close the box. You don't have to do it now because it'll load it up again. It basically saves any comments or any marks that you've put into it. Okay, so you don't have to do anything additional to save it. So that's the basic navigation of GradeMark. Do you have any questions so far?
No, it's all easy.
Yeah, have you used this stuff before?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay, so pretty straightforward.
But I mean, there's been little bits and pieces along the way. I've never dug into the bottom left-hand corner, for example, to get word count, and never obviously done that. So it's good. There's bits and pieces, and this could come close to finally selling me. The drag and drop of comments is I could potentially, You could almost sell me with that.
Yeah,
That's
and
pretty
look, it's one of those things. So I'm actually faster on the computer,
Yep.
but
You've got to put in the legwork to get there. Like there's shovel work to get to that point where you are faster. As in terms of setting up your quick marks or and having your comment bank. A friend just after you went on one of your sales pitches, a friend set hers up and started doing it. And after the first day, she said, "I marked 4," and I said, I looked at her like, this was always how it was going to go. You must have known that. She's like, "Oh, I didn't think of," but it's because she didn't have any marks in the bank. And any comments in the bank, and so everything was, and she was writing way too much in terms of one-off comments rather than going like drag.
Yeah, and you saw how I marked.
Absolutely
Smashed it really quick. The students really feel like their work is being read, which it is. And they feel that they're getting the attention they deserve. And not only that, like you're not working harder than you're getting paid for. But you're still providing that level of feedback and that level of assessment that that benefits the students that choose to take it on board, and also, and this is an important thing, but it also keeps you covered, so that because you're not going to remember one essay from the next, it means you can very quickly go, okay, this is why I gave them that mark. Any justifications, you can almost cut and paste from the comments that you've put in there. And it keeps you covered, keeps it transparent, and it makes it much more efficient. And the reality is, the more you use it, the easier it gets. Okay, so what we're going to do, if you go back, actually close this off, because what we're going to do is create a test student. Go back to the Moodle page of ER. And go up to add a block. Which is, there you go. Now you can add a test student. If you scroll down, have you ever added a test student before? Okay, this is a really good one, because what you can do is, when you add a test student, you can log in as that test student and check to see if your Moodle page appears to them as you want it to.
I like it,
Yeah? But the really good thing that you can do with it, so basically now that you have your test student list, we won't do it now, but you can just click on that, it gives you an opportunity to log in. So don't do it now, because we don't really need to use the test student at this stage. But if you go down to the submission inbox, now that you've created a test student, you can go to the submit paper and you can select the submission type, so file upload, and go and choose the test student. And just, you don't put anything in there, just a dash or whatever. Go to browse. It is, isn't it? It's usually really good. Go to, where am I? SP2 Workplace Learning. And go to Turn It In Lesson Plan Doc. We're just going to basically upload the lesson plan so that we and add submission. Now the reason why we do this is because you're generally going to set up a rubric before students have submitted their papers, and you need to have a test student in there to be able to create that rubric and test it out. You need a paper in there. Yeah?
Good trick.
Okay, now go and look for your test student. Yep. Excellent. Yeah, it's very late, as you can see. So go back and click on the paper. There you go. Okay, now if you go down to the rubric, as I say, every time you open up the grade mark, it comes up at the same size as the So that's, as I say, that's where you might want to tweak your submission inbox screen so that it works. You don't have to keep changing the size of that screen every time you use it. Okay, so if you go to the grade, you notice there are no grade marks in there. Yeah, so if you go up to the spanner. Now there are a couple of things you can do. What we're going to do first is import a rubric. So if you remember when I emailed you, I sent you a rubric for the FE paper. Okay, we're just going to import that rubric in.
Cool.
So if you go up to the arrow on the top right corner and import. Select File, and you're on the desktop. Go back to SP2 Workplace Learning, go to Quick Marks and Rubrics, and see you've got two files. One is RBC, one is QMS. We're going to take the marking rubric for the proposal RBC. Actually, this is not for the FE, this is for a proposal that I used. Okay. Import complete. Okay, go back. There's an arrow at the top. Pretty slow, huh?
Yeah.
Now if you go to the little list, the dot point list, okay, and scroll down, you have a number of options to create a new rubric, to duplicate an existing rubric, or to open one that we've just imported in. Yeah, so that's basically just a rubric I've made up previously. If you want to click on that,
yeah.
It's a very basic rubric, okay. Now if you'll notice along the left side, you've got the criteria. Okay, pretty straightforward. This is very similar to the kind of paper rubrics that you use.
Yep.
And on the right side, you've got all those different boxes. Yep. Yeah. So this was a pretty intense rubric that I created for them.
Yeah.
But creates like a really nice. So when you click on each of those boxes, you can actually edit the information that you go in there. So if you click on as you've clicked on the fail category, right?
And,
you can just type anything in there. Type anything in there, right? So, you know, no good, try again.
Detailed feedback.
Yeah, exactly, right? Now, I've kept this basic for a reason, just because, you know, it's easier for you to kind of just see that you've got all these different categories that you can use. Now, what you can do, so for example, you have created all these paper rubrics that are stored as Word documents. And as you would have noticed from the rubric I created for FE, I just basically copy and pasted all the information from the criteria, and in the various descriptions of those criteria and those grade criteria, I just copied and pasted them in. Yeah, and that's just an easy way of doing it if you've already got those existing things on a Word document. Okay, now if you look up at the top right corner, there's a little chain. Okay, don't click on that. So what that does is that links it to a paper. Okay, you can only edit a rubric when it is unlinked from a paper.
Okay, good.
So that's why. The reason for that is if you've linked it to a paper and you start marking, then you change the rubric, it kind of messes up the numbers.
Sure.
So this is where you put a bit of that work in beforehand.
Why does it need to be linked to a paper?
Because not a paper. So what it means is it gets linked to this assessment.
Ah, gotcha.
Yeah.
Okay. To as in to 2A and all of the papers.
All of the
within
papers
2A.
work with this rubric.
So if you want to recycle rubrics, like we might do for our digital story rubric when we get our postgrades next year,
absolutely,
we just link it to
gotcha. And so what the rubric that I sent to you, you just import that into your grade mark, and you'll have it there forever as long as you log into the same thing through Moodle. You'll always have it at the bottom of this list. You can always just use it. Same with quick marks. You have a number of quick mark sets that you can do. Now you can so to edit the rubric, it must be unlinked. But once you're happy with it, or once you want to test it out, you link it to the paper, or link it to the assessment, and then you can run through and have a bit of a test run like you did when I set it up for you. Now, you're all familiar with it. So if you click on these criteria as well, you can edit the comments you have in there. If you click on the titles, you can edit the comments there as well. And you can even click on the percentages to edit the number of percentages each one is worth.
Sure.
Okay, and that just depends on how you want to run it. There are easy ways and there are hard ways. This one was a hard one because I was getting the students to self-mark. On the top, you can edit the categories of high distinctions, etc. You can edit the marks that they have as well. You don't have to do it now. Now, I've got this set up as a percentile band. Okay, so with arts papers, you generally don't attribute individual points for each category. You attribute a percentile band, and then you get a rubric score at the end that is more consistent with an arts paper marking.
Yeah, sure. So it shows you at the end that you've handed out a 72 here, or something like that. And then say you're like, oh, I've handed out a 72, and this is a pass paper. It's a high pass paper, but it's nudged into the credit category. Do you, in an instance like this, are students seeing, they're not seeing any numerical marks from over here. So if you want to nudge it back one, you can just nudge it back one at the end, right?
Yeah, it's more of a qualitative thing.
Exactly.
But
we use those as well, and lots of people prefer them. It just depends what kind of thing we're doing,
kind of paper
and how many people we have, and all the rest of it.
And you get a lot of students that are a bit, nowadays especially, they really stick to these rubrics, and you're like, well, I mean, for arts papers, it's a writing skill. It's a qualitative process.
Yep.
It's a subjective.
Yep.
Creative process and a subjective marking process, and at the end of the day they have to trust our experience and expertise in marking, and you can just pitch it like that as well, and it is about their ability to be creative and to craft words, and that's not a quantifiable thing. So
there's definitely different schools of thought in education. There's some that want it very much to be objective, as much as possible, kind of thing, and therefore that gives you 22.5 out of.
Ignoring that objective process is in fact inherently subjective.
Exactly, yes. And then there's others who want it to be subjective and a marking on the feel. And obviously the feel for something like an essay is really important because it's an overall kind of product. There are other instances, I suppose, where we can maybe break it down and say, yeah, okay, you did all right there, you did all right there. So.
But even this kind of helps them to see, all right, you know what, with regards to the relevance, I probably dropped the ball. And they don't all have to be in the one line, and it shows them, all right, you did really well here. It's when you put it all together as a package. Yeah. And the reason why I have different percentages is that I've worked out, over time, you get more marks for things that are related to the content, than say the referencing.
Yes,
they're not all weighted equally.
That's right.
So this is a very complex one, and I just picked it because it was one that was available.
That's good. Yeah.
Okay, so then if you look down the bottom there, you've got a percentage. Yep. Obviously, we're marking according to the percentage. If you move to the next one, you can actually input. You can edit it and input your own scores. Yeah, this is the one that we used.
Yeah, cool.
Yeah, so it takes away the criteria for each, the percentage for each criteria, and it actually gives you an option to go individual marks for each one. This is more of a quantifiable process.
And how did you tell this on our one, that this one's worth 3.6 as a max, this one's worth 4.2 as a max? Where did you tell it? Is this where you just went in and typed